cold metal floor of the council chamber made Unakim's knees shake. She stood in the center of a huge round room, surrounded by alien beings who wanted her gone. The ceiling stretched high above her head, covered in strange lights that hurt. Her eyes, 3 different alien races sat on tall chairs around her. They looked down at her like she was a bug they wanted to step on. The Vorthok spoke first. It looked like a giant walking crystal, blue and sharp. When it talked, its voice sounded like breaking glass. "Dr. Unakim," it said, "you have been found guilty of spreading dangerous ideas." Una kept her head up. She was scared, but she would not let them see it. "My research is based on facts," she said. "I studied animal behavior for 10 years. I know what I'm talking about." The Melody alien made a wet, laughing sound. It had long, thick arms, like an octopus, and skin that changed colors. Right now, its skin was dark red with anger. "Facts," said. "You think the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy can be talked to like pets? You are crazy." The third alien, a Krex, clicked its bug-like mouth parts. It had 6 arms and eyes like black marbles. "She wants us to believe that monsters can be friends," it said. "This human is too dangerous to live." Una felt her heart beat faster. She knew they wanted to kill her, but she had to try one more time. "Listen to me," she said. "Every animal on Earth was once wild and dangerous. Wolves became dogs. Wild horses became tame. Even tigers can learn to trust humans, if you understand them." Silence. The Vorthok's voice was so loud it made the walls shake. "You compare simple Earth animals to the Void Stalker of Mortis Prime? That creature has killed hundreds of our best soldiers. It is pure evil." Una shook her head. "Right. Is pure evil. Every creature acts for a reason. Fear, hunger, protecting their home. If we could understand why the Void Stalker attacks, maybe we could enough." The Melody's skin turned bright purple. "Your ideas are poison. If other species start believing they can make friends with predators, it will destroy the natural order. The strong eat the weak. That is how the universe works." Commander Deho Park stood up from the human section of the chamber. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been Yuna's friend since she joined the space program. "Council members," he said, "Dr. Kim is one of our best scientists. Her research has helped us understand dozens of new species. Please, reconsider this punishment." The Krex made a hissing sound. "Commander Park, your species is already too soft. You humans make pets out of everything, but some things cannot be tamed. Some things must be destroyed." Una watched as Commander Park sat down. His face was sad and angry, but he could not help her anymore. The council had made up their minds before the trial even started. The Vorthok stood up. Its crystal body caught the strange lights and threw rainbow colors across the room. "Dr. Una Kim," it said, "you will be sent to Mortis Prime. There you will face the Void Stalker that has killed 37 expeditions. If your theories are correct, you should be able to tame it." The Melody's skin turned bright yellow with what looked like joy. "Of course, we do not expect you to survive. No one has ever survived meeting the Void Stalker. But if you do live, and if you somehow prove your point, we will listen to your ideas." Una felt cold all over. They were sending her to die. They did not care about her research or her theories. They just wanted her gone. "What supplies will I have?" she asked. The Krex clicked its mouth parts in what might have been laughter. "You will have a basic environment suit, food for 1 week, and a communication beacon. The beacon will tell us when you are dead." 1 week of food? Una could not believe it. "The planet is covered in toxic storms. How am I supposed to find the creature and study it in 1 week?" "You are not supposed to study it," the Vorthok said. "You are supposed to die. But we are giving you a chance to prove us wrong. Use it wisely." 2 guards came forward. They were both humans, but they would not look at her face. They had their orders. One of them put metal cuffs on her hands. The other picked up a small bag that held her few supplies. As they walked her toward the door, Commander Park called out. "Una," he said, "remember what you always told me? You said you could speak to any animal if you watched it long enough." Maybe this time will be different. Yuna turned to look at him one last time. Take care of Minho, she said. Tell him his research on animal communication was right. Now, tell him I'm going to prove it. The guards led her through long, cold hallways. Other aliens stopped to stare at her as she passed. Some looked curious. Others looked happy to see her being taken away. A few looked sorry for her. They brought her to a small ship that would take her to Mortis Prime. The pilot was a human woman with short black hair. She looked at Yuna with sad eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I wish I could help you.
Yeah.
Just get me there safely, Yuna said. That's all the help I need. The ship was tiny inside. There was only one seat and a small window. Yuna sat down and watched as they left the council station. Stars moved past the window, like tiny lights in the darkness. She thought about her research back on Earth. She had spent years studying how humans could communicate with dangerous animals. Lions, bears, sharks, all of them had learned to trust her eventually. But the Void Stalker was different. It was not from Earth. It was alien, huge, and had killed everyone who ever met it. But Yuna had read all the reports. She had studied the video footage from the failed expeditions. Something about the creature's behavior seemed strange to her. The way it moved, the sounds it made, even the way it attacked, it all seemed like it was trying to say something. Other scientists thought she was crazy. The council thought she was dangerous. But Yuna knew in her heart that every creature, no matter how strange or scary, had a reason for what it did. As the ship flew toward Mortis Prime, Yuna closed her eyes and made herself a promise. She would not just try to survive. She would try to understand. And maybe, if she was very lucky and very careful, she would prove that even monsters could be friends. The stars outside the window seemed to twinkle like they were wishing her good luck. She would need all the luck she could get. The ship shook like an angry animal as it fell through Mortis Prime's thick clouds. Yuna held onto her seat with both hands. The pilot's voice came through the speakers, full of worry. Dr. Kim, the storms are too strong. I can't control the ship anymore. You need to get in the escape pod now. Lightning flashed outside the window. It was not normal lightning. This lightning was green and purple, and it made the air smell like burning metal. The ship spun around and around as the wind grabbed it. Yuna crawled to the escape pod. Her hands shook as she pressed the buttons. The pod was even smaller than the ship, just big enough for one person and her supply bag. She strapped herself in just as the main ship started to break apart. The pod shot away from the dying ship like a bullet. Through the small window, Yuna watched the ship crash into the ground far below. Pieces of metal scattered everywhere, some still glowing red hot. Her pod hit the ground hard. The impact knocked the air from her lungs and made her head spin. When everything stopped moving, she sat still for a long time, just breathing. Finally, she opened the pod door. The world outside was like nothing she had ever seen. The sky was always dark, full of thick clouds that flashed with strange colors. The ground was covered in white sand that looked like crushed bones. Tall crystal trees grew everywhere, reaching up like frozen fingers. But the strangest thing was the sound. The crystal trees sang. It was a low, deep music that seemed to come from inside the crystals themselves. The song was beautiful, but it made her teeth hurt and her eyes water. Yuna put on her environment suit and stepped outside. The gravity was wrong. Sometimes she felt heavy, sometimes she felt light, like the planet could not make up its mind. The air tasted sharp and bitter, even through her suit's filters. She looked around for a supply bag. It had landed about 50 feet away, half buried in the bone-white sand. As she walked toward it, she saw something that made her stop. Claw marks. They were cut deep into the crystal trees around her crash site. Each mark was as long as her arm and as wide as her hand. Whatever made them had claws like sword blades. The Void Stalker had been here. Yuna felt her heart beat faster, but she made herself stay calm. She was a scientist. She would observe and learn, not panic and run. She picked up her supply bag and found a safe place to make camp. There was a small clearing between 3 large crystal trees that would give her some protection from the wind. She set up her tiny shelter and checked her supplies. 1 week of food, a basic scanner for taking readings, small heater that would only work for a few hours at a time, and the communication beacon that would tell the council when she died. She looked at the beacon for a long time. Then she turned it off. She was going to die. She would do it on her own terms. For the next 2 days, Yuna explored the area around her camp. She took readings of everything: the air, the soil, the strange crystal trees. She found more claw marks everywhere. Some were old and weathered. Some looked fresh. The creature was still here, somewhere in this crystal forest. On the second night, she found something interesting. Near a group of broken crystal trees, she discovered a pattern in the sand. It was not random. Someone or something had arranged small rocks and crystal pieces in a careful design. The pattern was complex and beautiful, like a work of art. But what kind of monster made art? The third night changed everything. Yuna was sitting by her small fire, writing notes in her journal, when the crystal trees suddenly stopped singing. The forest became completely quiet. Even the wind stopped blowing. She looked up from her journal and saw 2 glowing eyes watching her from the darkness between the trees. The eyes were huge, bigger than dinner plates, and they burned like small suns. As Yuna watched, the creature stepped out of the shadows. It was bigger than anything she had ever imagined. 12 feet tall, maybe more. Its body was covered in black scales that seemed to eat the light from her fire. It had 6 arms, each ending in claws that gleamed like metal knives. Its head was long and narrow, with a mouth full of teeth like broken glass. This was the Void Stalker, the creature that had killed hundreds of soldiers and explorers, the monster that the entire galaxy feared. It should have killed her instantly instead. Stopped about 20 feet away and just looked at her. Why you and I knew she should run. Every part of her body told her to get up and run as fast as she could. But she was a scientist, and scientists observed. So she sat very still and looked back at the creature. The Void Stalker tilted its huge head to one side, like a curious dog. Strange patterns of light began to glow under its black scales. The lights pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Blue then, green, then gold. It took a step closer. Yuna's hand shook, but she did not move. She watched the creature's eyes, its posture, the way it held its deadly claws. She had studied predators all her life. She knew the signs of an animal about to attack. This creature was not about to attack. It was curious. The Void Stalker walked in a slow circle around her camp, always keeping those burning eyes on her. Its feet made no sound on the sand, even though it must have weighed tons. The light patterns under its scales changed as it moved faster when it looked at her fire, slower when it looked at her journal. Then it did something that made Yuna's breath catch in her throat. It sat down. A creature that had killed 37 expeditions. A monster that the galaxy's best soldiers could not defeat. Sat down like a giant cat and continued to watch her. They stared at each other for what felt like hours. Yuna noticed that the creature's breathing was slow and steady. Its claws were relaxed, not ready to strike. Its head tilted first one way, then the other, like it was trying to understand what she was, just like she was trying to understand what it was. Slowly, very slowly, Yuna reached for her journal. The creature's eyes followed her hand, but it did not move. She opened the journal and showed it a page covered with her drawings of the crystal trees and the rock patterns she had found. The Void Stalker leaned forward, those huge eyes focusing on the paper. For a moment, Yuna thought she saw something impossible in those burning eyes. Not hunger, not anger. Intelligence. Then, as quietly as it had come, the creature stood up and walked back into the crystal forest. The light patterns under its scales faded until it disappeared completely into the darkness. The crystal trees began to sing again. The wind started to blow. But everything had changed. Yuna sat by her dying fire and wrote in her journal with shaking hands. Day 3. First contact successful. Subject shows curiosity, intelligence, and non-aggressive behavior. Traditional assumptions about Void Stalker may be completely wrong. She looked up at the dark forest where the creature had disappeared. Tomorrow, she decided, she would try to find it again. Not to fight it or run from it, but to understand it. Maybe, just maybe, the galaxy's greatest monster was not a monster at all. Yuna woke up the next morning with a crazy idea. Instead of hiding from the Void Stalker, she would wait for it to come back. She spent the day getting ready. She moved her camp to the center of the crystal clearing where the creature had first appeared. She arranged her few belongings in a neat circle around her small fire. Then she sat down and waited. The sun never really came up on Mortis Prime. The thick clouds only got a little brighter during the day, then darker again at night. Yuna used her scanner to take readings of everything around her. The crystal trees, the strange sand, even the air itself. What she found was interesting. The crystals were not just pretty rocks. They were alive, in a way. They grew and changed, storing energy from the planet's core. That was why they sang. They were talking to each other through sound waves. As evening came, Yuna heard the crystal trees grow quiet again. Her heart started beating faster. The creature was coming. This time she was ready for it. The Void Stalker stepped out of the forest exactly where it had appeared the night before. Those huge burning eyes looked right at her, like it remembered her. The light patterns under its black scales began to glow, blue, green, gold, just like before. But tonight, something was different. The creature moved closer than before, stopping. Only 10 feet away from her fire, it sat down again, but this time it leaned forward, watching everything she did. Yuna reached slowly for her supply bag. The creature's eyes followed her hand, but it did not seem afraid. She pulled out one of her metal tools, a small scanner that beeped and flashed lights. The Void Stalker's head tilted to one side. The light patterns under its scales changed to match the colors of her scanner's lights. Yuna's eyes went wide. The creature was copying her tool's light pattern. It was trying to communicate. Carefully, she set the scanner down between them. The creature stretched out one of its huge arms, its claw sharp enough to cut through steel, gently touched the scanner. The tool beeped, and the creature made a soft sound, not a roar, something almost like a purr. For the next hour, they played a strange game. Yuna would show the creature something, a tool, a piece of her equipment, even pages from her journal. The creature would examine each item carefully, sometimes touching it with just the tip of one claw. When Yuna showed it, her drawings of the crystal trees, the creature did something amazing. It stood up and walked to the edge of the clearing. Using one claw, it drew its own picture in the sand. Yuna walked over to look at what it had drawn. Her breath caught in her throat. The drawing was not just good, it was perfect. Every line was exact, every detail correct. The creature had drawn the crystal forest from above, showing things Yuna had never seen. "You're an artist," she whispered. The creature looked at her and made that purring sound again. Then it drew something else in the sand. This drawing was different. It showed the crystal forest, but it also showed other things. Strange buildings that looked like they were made of crystal and metal, creatures that looked like smaller versions of the Void Stalker. Yuna stared at the drawing. "This is your home," she said. "Your people lived here." The creature's light patterns changed. The colors became darker, sadder. It drew one more picture, the same crystal buildings, but broken and empty. No more small creatures, just emptiness. Yuna felt tears in her eyes. "You're alone," she said. "You're the last one." The Void Stalker looked at her with those burning eyes. For the first time, Yuna saw something in them that was not alien at all. Loneliness. The same loneliness she had felt her whole life, being different from everyone else. Over the next few days, their strange friendship grew stronger. The creature came to visit her every evening. Yuna started calling it Kale, because that was the sound it made most often, a deep, musical Kale that seemed to mean different things depending on how it was said. Kale showed her more of the planet. There were caves, deep underground, filled with the energy crystals that the galaxy wanted so badly. But there were also dangers everywhere. Pools of acid that could melt through her suit. Gas pockets that would explode if touched. Crystal formations that gave off deadly radiation. The most dangerous thing was the planet's weather. The The storms were not just wind and rain. They were electrical storms that could fry any electronic equipment in seconds. The lightning was so strong it could turn sand into glass. That's why all the other expeditions failed, Yuna realized. They didn't know about the dangers. They just came here looking for crystals. But Kale knew about all the dangers. It had lived here for a long time, learning how to survive. When the first expeditions arrived, Kale had tried to warn them. It had tried to lead them away from the dangerous areas, but the soldiers and explorers saw only a monster. They shot at Kale with their weapons, or they tried to kill it before it could help them. So Kale fought back, not because it was evil, but because it was afraid and hurt and alone. You weren't trying to kill them, Yuna said one evening as they sat by her fire. You were trying to save them. Kale made a sad sound and touched one of the old scars on its side. Yuna could see the marks where laser weapons had burned its scales. She reached out slowly and touched the scar. Kale went very still, but it did not pull away. Its scales were warm and smooth, like polished stone. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry. They hurt you. I'm sorry no one understood." Kale's light patterns changed to soft blue and gold. Right. It leaned down and very gently touched Yuna's face with the tip of one claw. The touch was so light she barely felt it, but it meant everything. They were not human and alien anymore. They were not predator and prey. They were two lonely beings who had found each other in the darkness. That night, as Kale prepared to leave, Yuna heard a sound that made her blood go cold. It was the sound of spaceships entering the atmosphere. She looked up at the stormy sky and saw lights moving through the clouds. "Big ships, military ships, the Council," she whispered. "They're coming." Kale heard the ships too. Its light patterns turned bright red, the color of anger and fear. It knew what those ships meant. More soldiers. More weapons. More pain. But this time would be different. This time, Kale would not be alone. Yuna stood up and put her hand on Kale's arm. "We'll face them together," she said. "God, you don't have to be afraid anymore." Kale looked down at her, then up at the approaching ships. Its light patterns changed from red to determined gold. For the first time in decades, the last of the Void Stalkers had an ally. The ships were coming, but Yuna and Kale were ready for them. The Council ships landed 3 miles away from Yuna's camp. She could see their lights through the crystal forest, cold and bright against the dark sky. There were 5 ships, more than enough to destroy everything on the planet. Kale's light patterns flashed angry red as the ships landed. It stood up tall, all 12 feet of it, and made a sound Yuna had never heard before. It was not a roar or a purr. It was like singing, but deep and sad and full of pain. "It hurt you before," Yuna said, understanding. "The people from ships like those?" Kale nodded its huge head. Its claws dug deep cuts in the crystal ground. The creature was getting ready to fight, but Yuna could see the fear in its burning eyes. "Wait," she said. "Don't fight them yet. Let me show you something first." Yuna picked up her communication beacon, the device the Council had given her to report her death. She turned it on and checked the signal. It was working perfectly. "Kale," she said, "I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" The creature looked at her for a long moment. Then its light patterns changed from red to soft blue. "Trust. Good," Yuna said. "Now I need you to show me everything. All the secrets of this planet. If we're going to survive, I need to understand this place as well as you do." For the next several hours, Kale led Yuna deeper into the crystal forest than she had ever gone before. They moved carefully, avoiding the dangerous areas Kale had shown her over the past few days. First, Kale showed her the ancient ruins of its people. The buildings were beautiful, made of crystal and metal twisted together in impossible shapes. Some were broken by time and weather, but others still stood tall and proud. Inside one of the buildings, Yuna found something amazing. The walls were covered with drawings and symbols. It's not just pictures, but writing. The language of Kale's people. "This is your history," she said, running her fingers over the crystal walls. "Your people were not just hunters. They were builders, artists, writers." Kale made soft sounds as they walked through the ruins. It was telling her stories, Yuna realized. Stories about its people, its family, its world before the sickness came. The sickness. That was what had killed all the other Void Stalkers. Kale showed her a room deep inside the largest building. The walls here were covered with pictures that told a terrible story. Strange creatures from space had brought a disease that killed Kale's people one by one. Only Kale had survived, alone in the ruins of its civilization. Next, Kale showed her the planet's greatest secret. Deep underground, in caves that went down for miles, were the energy crystals the galaxy wanted. These were not just valuable rocks. They were the heart of the planet itself, storing power that could light up entire star systems. That's why the Council really wants this place, Una said. It's not just for the crystals, but for the power. But Kale showed her something else. The crystals were alive, just like the crystal trees above ground. They were part of a huge network that covered the entire planet. If someone tried to mine them without understanding how they worked, the whole system could collapse. The planet would die, Una whispered, and anyone on it would die too. Kale nodded sadly. His people had been the guardians of this living world. Kale was the only guardian left. As they made their way back toward Una's camp, she began to understand the real truth about what had happened to all those expeditions. The soldiers and explorers had come to Mortis Prime looking for crystals. They had started digging and drilling without knowing what they were doing. Kale had tried to stop them, not to hurt them, but to save them from destroying themselves and the planet. But the expeditions saw only a monster attacking them. They fought back with weapons and violence. In the end, Kale had been forced to kill to protect the world it loved. Every death had hurt it, but it had no choice. You're not a monster, Una said as they reached the edge of her camp. You're a hero, a lonely, misunderstood hero. Kale's light patterns glowed warm gold. For the first time since its people died, someone understood what it really was. But their quiet moment was broken by the sound of marching feet. Through the crystal trees, Una could see lights moving toward them. The council soldiers were coming. Dr. Kim, a voice called through a speaker. This is Commander Hyun Park of the Council's security force. We know you are alive. Come out with your hands visible. Una recognized the name. Commander Hyun Park was Commander Daeho Park's younger brother. Both men were good soldiers, but Hyun always followed orders without question. Stay hidden, Una told Kale. Let me talk to them first. But Kale shook its huge head. Its light patterns were determined gold, mixed with protective red. It would not abandon its friend. The soldiers appeared at the edge of the clearing. 20 of them, all wearing heavy armor and carrying powerful weapons. They formed a circle around Una's camp, with their guns pointed at her. Commander Hyun Park stepped forward. He was younger than his brother, with hard eyes and a face that showed no emotion. Dr. Kimmy said, "You were supposed to be dead days ago. Why is your beacon still transmitting?" "Because I'm still alive," Una said. "I've learned things the Council needs to know." "The only thing we need to know is where the Void Stalker is," Commander Park said. "Our orders are simple. Kill the creature, secure the planet's resources, and bring back your body as proof that your dangerous ideas died with you." Una felt angry heat rise in her chest. "My dangerous ideas? You mean the idea that we can solve problems without killing everything we don't understand?" "Exactly," the commander said. "Now step aside. Our sensors show a large life form nearby. We'll find the creature and destroy it." "No," Una said, stepping between the soldiers and the forest where Kale was hiding. "I won't let you hurt it." Commander Park looked at her like she was crazy. "Dr. Kim, that thing has killed hundreds of people. It's the most dangerous predator in the galaxy." "It's the most misunderstood creature in the galaxy," Una said. "And I can prove it." Before the commander could respond, the crystal trees around the clearing began to sing. But this was not their usual song. This was different, deeper, stronger, more beautiful than anything Una had heard before. The soldiers looked around nervously as the song grew louder. Their weapons shook in their hands. Then Kale stepped out of the forest. Every soldier raised their weapon, but Kale did not attack. Instead, it walked slowly toward Una, its light patterns glowing soft blue and gold. When it reached her, it sat down beside her like a giant, loyal pet. "Impossible," Commander Park whispered. Yuna put her hand on Kale's arm. The creature's scales were warm under her touch. "Commander," she said, "meet my friend. It has a name and a story and feelings, just like us. And it's been trying to protect this planet from people who would destroy it." The soldiers stared in shock as the galaxy's most feared monster gently nuzzled Yuna's shoulder with its huge head.
"Ow,"
Yuna said. "Are you going to listen to what I've learned? Or are you going to make the same mistake 37 expeditions made before you?" The answer to that question would decide the fate of 3 worlds, Earth, Mortis Prime, and the future of understanding between different species in the galaxy. Commander Hayan Park stared at Yuna and Kale for a long moment. His finger rested on the trigger of his weapon, but he did not fire. Around the clearing, 20 soldiers waited for his order. "Dr. Kim," the commander said slowly, "step away from that creature. It's dangerous." "No," Yuna said. "It's misunderstood, just like I was misunderstood by the council." Shh. Kale made a soft sound and moved closer to Yuna. Its light patterns glowed calm blue, showing no sign of aggression. Shh. The soldiers looked confused. This was not how the galaxy's most feared monster was supposed to act. "Commander," one of the soldiers said, "should we fire?" Commander Park held up his hand. "Wait." He looked at Kale more carefully. "Dr. Kim, explain what's happening here. Make it quick." Yuna took a deep breath. This was her chance to save everything. Kale the planet, and maybe even change how the galaxy thought about dangerous creatures. "Kale is not a killer," she said. "It's the last guardian of this world. Its people lived here for thousands of years, protecting the planet's crystal network. When they died from a disease, Kale was left alone. That doesn't explain why it killed 37 expeditions," Commander Park said. "Because those expeditions were going to destroy the planet," Yuna explained. "The crystals underground are alive, are connected to everything on this world. If you mine them the wrong way, the whole planet dies." Kale stood up and walked to the center of the clearing. Using its huge claws, it began to draw in the sand. The soldiers watched, amazed, as the creature drew a perfect map of the planet's underground crystal network. "See," Yuna said. "Kale was trying to show the other expeditions where it was safe to dig and where it was dangerous. But they thought it was attacking them." Commander Park walked closer to look at Kale's drawing. "This is ... This is incredible detail. How could it know all this?" "Because its people were the Guardians," Yuna said. "They understood this world better than anyone. Kale tried to save those expeditions from making deadly mistakes. But when they shot at it, it had to defend itself and the planet." One of the soldiers lowered his weapon. "Commander, if what she's saying is true... It means we've been wrong about everything," Commander Park finished. He looked up at Kale, who was watching him with those huge burning eyes. "Dr. Kim, can this creature really understand us?" "Watch," Yuna said. She turned to Kale. "Kale, show them the safe places to find crystals." Kale nodded and drew more pictures in the sand. It showed small caves near the surface where crystals could be safely taken without hurting the planet's network. Then it drew the dangerous deep areas where mining would cause disaster. The soldiers gathered around to look at the drawings. They had never seen anything like this before. A monster that was trying to help them. "Commander," another soldier said, "maybe we should listen to what Dr. Kim learned." But before Commander Park could answer, a new voice came through the radio. It was cold and angry. "Commander Park, this is Council Leader Vorthok. Why have you not killed the creature yet?" Commander Park picked up his radio. "Council Leader, the situation is more complex than we thought. Dr. Kim has made contact with the creature. It appears to be intelligent and non-hostile." "Impossible," the Vorthak's crystal voice cracked through the speaker. "The creature is a killer. It must be destroyed immediately. That is an order." Yuna felt her heart sink. The council leaders were listening to everything through the radio. They would never accept the truth about Kale. "Commander Park," the Vorthok continued, "you will kill the creature and Dr. Kim immediately. Her ideas are too dangerous to be allowed to spread. If other species start believing they can make friends with predators, it will destroy the natural order of the galaxy." Commander Park looked at his radio, then at Yuna and Kale. His face was troubled. Council leader requesting permission to bring Dr. Kim back for questioning. Her research could be valuable. Denied, kill them both. Now. The soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. They had signed up to fight monsters, not to murder a scientist and her peaceful alien friend. Commander, one soldier said quietly, this doesn't feel right. Commander Park was quiet for a long moment, and he made a decision that would change everything. Council Leader Vorthok, he said into the radio, I'm sorry, but I cannot follow that order. What? The Vorthok's voice was full of rage. Dare disobey the council? Swore an oath to protect innocent life, Commander Park said. Dr. Kim and this creature are not threats. They're trying to help us understand this world. You are making a terrible mistake, Commander. We will send more ships? We will destroy that entire planet if we have to. Commander Park looked at Yuna. Dr. Kim, how long would it take you to prove your theories? To show the galaxy what you've learned here? With Kale's help? Maybe a few weeks? We could document everything, the crystal network, the ruins of Kale's people, the real history of what happened here. And that's what we'll do, Commander Park said. He turned to his soldiers. Men, we're staying. We're going to help Dr. Kim and ... Kale ... show the galaxy the truth. The soldiers nodded. They had seen enough to know that everything they thought they knew was wrong. Kale made a happy sound in its light. Patterns turned bright gold. For the first time in decades, it was not alone. It had friends who understood. Over the next few weeks, amazing things happened. Yuna and Kale worked together to document the planet's secrets. The soldiers helped them explore the crystal caves and the ruins of the ancient civilization. They found incredible things. Art, music, science, and technology from Kale's people. Proof that the Void Stalkers had been peaceful explorers and guardians, not monsters. More importantly, they found a way to safely harvest the planet's crystals without damaging the living network. It would mean less profit for the big companies, but it would save the world. Commander Park sent daily reports back to Earth and the other human colonies. Soon, the news spread across the galaxy. The story of Dr. Yuna Kim and her friendship with the last Void Stalker became famous. Other scientists came to study Kale and its world. Other species began to question their own fears about dangerous creatures. Maybe some of their enemies were just misunderstood friends. The council tried to stop the story from spreading, but it was too late. The galaxy had heard about a human, a woman who looked at a monster and saw a friend, about a creature that chose trust over violence, and about the power of understanding instead of fear. 6 months later, Yuna stood in a new building on Mortis Prime. It was called the Interspecies Communication Institute. Scientists from dozens of worlds came here to learn how to talk to creatures they had once feared, and at the center of it all was Kale. No longer the last of its kind in spirit, if not in body. It had become a teacher, showing visitors that the scariest-looking creatures could have the gentlest hearts. Yuna watched as a group of young alien students drew pictures in the sand with Kale's help. The creatures' light patterns glowed happy blue and gold as it taught them about art and science and friendship. You know, she said to Kale, they sent me here to die. But instead, we both learned how to live. Kale made its soft purring sound and gently touched her shoulder with one massive claw. In its burning eyes, Yuna saw not the galaxy's most feared monster, but her dearest friend. The monster was gone. In its place was hope for a galaxy where understanding could overcome fear, and where the scariest creatures might just be waiting for someone brave enough to say hello. And it all started with a woman who refused to run, a lonely creature who just wanted a friend.